Danielle Carter had walked past hundreds of people the city had taught her not to see, but she never imagined that one ordinary Tuesday morning would end with her entire understanding of love, wealth, and worth turned completely upside down, because of a torn grocery bag and a man she thought had nothing left to lose. It happened on 5th and Lincoln, right outside the coffee shop she passed every morning on her way to the design firm where she'd spent 3 years fighting for a seat at the table. Danielle noticed him the way most people did, briefly, and without much thought. A man in a gray hoodie, kneeling on the sidewalk, a torn paper bag spilling apples and oranges across the concrete. Most mornings, she would have kept walking. That morning, something made her stop. Maybe it was the quiet dignity in the way he gathered the fruit, unhurried, unashamed. Maybe it was simply that no one else on that crowded sidewalk had bothered to slow down. Whatever it was, Danielle knelt beside him without a second thought, gathering apples into her open palms, and introduced herself like it was the most natural thing in the world. If stories like this, about second chances, quiet kindness, and the people we walk past every single day, move something in you, this is exactly why we started Kindness Corner. Please take a second right now to like this video, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Now, back to Danielle and Marcus. His name, he told her, was Marcus. He didn't offer much else that first morning, and she didn't ask. She simply helped him gather what had fallen, wished him well, and told him the diner 2 blocks down always kept a table open in her name if he ever needed a hot meal. She walked away thinking that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Over the following weeks, Danielle found herself slowing down near that same corner more often than she needed to. Marcus was usually there, sitting quietly, watching the city move around him the way a man watches a river he can no longer swim in. They began to talk, about nothing important at first, the weather, a song stuck in her head, a book she was reading on her lunch break. But slowly, the conversations deepened. Marcus asked about her work, her dreams, the promotion she wanted but didn't quite believe she deserved. He remembered small details she'd only mentioned once. He never asked her for money. He never performed gratitude the way she'd expected someone in his position might. Instead, he listened, really listened, in a way most people in her life had stopped doing a long time ago. Her best friend Renee noticed the change first. She watched Danielle's face light up over lunch as she talked about a man from a street corner, and her worry came out gently but firmly. She reminded Danielle that kindness was one thing, but she didn't know where this man slept at night, where he came from, or why he never talked about a past. Danielle heard the concern, and she understood it, but something about Marcus felt different from the caution people were trying to hand her. He made her feel seen in a city that had spent years teaching her how to be invisible in her own ambitions. She wasn't ready to let that go, even for the comfort of certainty. The morning that changed everything started like any other, except this time, Danielle wasn't walking to her usual desk. Her firm had landed its biggest contract yet, redesigning the lobby of Ashwood Commons, one of the city's newest and most talked about towers, owned by a private holding company no one at her office could quite explain. She rehearsed her presentation for a week straight, walked into the boardroom on the top floor with her portfolio held tightly against her chest, heart pounding with a mixture of pride and nerve she hadn't felt in years. She stopped cold in the doorway. Standing at the head of the table, dressed in a charcoal suit that fit like it had been made specifically for him, was Marcus. Not the man in the gray hoodie she'd knelt beside on a sidewalk. Not the man she'd shared quiet lunches with on a public bench. The same tired, gentle eyes, yes, but every other detail of him had rearranged itself into someone she didn't recognize at all. The silence in that room stretched long enough for her to do the math in her head, piece by piece, until it added up to something she could barely say out loud. He owned the building. He owned, as it turned out, nearly a third of downtown Ashwood, a legacy his father had built from nothing decades earlier in a city that hadn't wanted to give either of them respect. Marcus asked everyone else to step out, and when they were finally alone, he didn't apologize, not exactly, because in his mind he'd never actually lied to her. He'd simply let her believe what the rest of the world believed when they saw a black man sitting outside a coffee shop in a worn hoodie, because for years, that quiet experiment had told him more honest things about people's character than any boardroom ever could. For mornings a week, he traded his suit for that hoodie, not to perform poverty, but to find out who would still kneel down beside him with nothing at all to gain from it. Danielle had been the only one who ever had. She didn't feel foolish standing there, though the ground beneath her had clearly shifted. She felt, instead, like she was finally seeing the full picture of a man she'd already come to care for in pieces. She told him quietly that none of it changed what she'd felt on that sidewalk weeks earlier, and if anything, it explained things about him she'd never quite understood, his patience, his listening, the way he never once asked her for anything in return. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to believe that kindness still matters, and that people are so rarely who the world assumes them to be. And before we get to how it all ends, we'd love for you to drop a comment below and tell us about a time you saw someone the rest of the world had stopped looking at. We read every single one, and some of the best stories on this channel start in our comment section. In the months that followed, Danielle kept walking her usual 6 blocks home every evening, and more often than not, Marcus was somewhere along that path waiting for her, sometimes in a suit fresh from a meeting, sometimes in that same gray hoodie he never fully gave up, because some part of him never stopped wanting to be the man she'd knelt beside first. Ashwood Commons finished its lobby redesign a year later, and near the entrance, a small brass plaque was mounted, one most visitors would walk past without a second glance. It carried no company name, no title, only a single quiet line that Danielle had designed herself, for the ones who are still worth kneeling down beside. Marcus never took it down, and neither of them ever forgot the sidewalk where it all began.